You know, niggas gotta get their priorities together. Got their mind on the wrong things, spending their money in the wrong way.
Trapaholics, real trap shit.
Say you need that car with the rims and a trunk, just like Jim. It's more than life. Yeah.
I'm telling you. Talk to him.
Say you need that LV bag with the belt and the hat.
That's all you got though.
It's more than life. Yeah.
Talk to him. Real.
Say you wanna turn up at the club, like some bottles, impress them girls. It's more than life.
Fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And who dat? And we're back. We're back with some more main course for you. Some main course, and I'm talking about the Saints' 25-19 loss over the New England Patriots at home this past Sunday, and that drops the Saints to 1-5, and the Patriots looking like Tom Brady era Patriots against the Saints, and the record looking like Tom Brady, Bill Belichick-ish at 4-2. But before we delve too deep into the game, I just want to talk about how, like, as Saints fans and Hoodats, or at least for me, my opinion, my experience with it is that, man, just last previous 10 games or so, I think Saints fans, or at least myself, we're just starting to feel comfortable and okay with losing. It got to the point, after the Saints started the season 0-2, 0-3, that it was just like, okay, I don't really care if they win or lose. It was definitely like that during the Seahawks game, like when they scored like 30 points in the first half, and it was just like, okay, whatever, this game's hurt. I just hope no one gets hurt, and maybe a young player will make a nice play and at least have some type of highlights that I can go back and watch, and it won't just be all low lights. But the Saints picking up their win before they went 0-10 before having a win. So they went 9 straight games without winning a game, and then they won the game against the Giants. And man, I guess I just forgot how good it felt to win and to enjoy it and enjoy hearing any type of news or anything about other teams that are having struggles, or the team that your team just beat, or maybe they just beat a team. The team that you beat just beat some other team, and you get to hear about it, and you're comparing and contrasting. And it's just a good feeling. It's such a good feeling to win. And this whole moment and feeling that I have right now kind of reminds me going all the way back to last year, week 1 and week 2, to where, yeah, it seemed very unbelievable that the Saints are getting these 2 50-point wins back to back to start the season. That I knew that there was something up with that. That's not who the Saints really were. So I knew after those 2 wins that you should enjoy it while you can, because it didn't last. And of course, it won't last, and it didn't last. And that's how this Saints game against the Patriots felt like. Coming into it, the Saints were uber healthy, healthier than they pretty much have been since the end of the Breeze Payton era. This is like the healthiest they've been going into a game that's pushing mid-season, and they're coming off an impressive victory where, you can't expect your defense to bail you out with 5 turnovers every game, but still felt good coming in off of a win and really not knowing how good the Patriots are. But still, that feeling, it was hard to let go of this one, to be like, okay, the Patriots are better than us. We lost. But man, it didn't feel like that. It felt like if the Saints just did one more thing here, one more thing there, that they could have won that game. And that's really how it's felt all year. But I have to get into the players and the penalties and the refs and the reviewing before we get too much into that. But I was getting to the point where I almost feel like I wish the Saints wouldn't have won against the Giants and just would have kept on losing, because then that probably wouldn't have given me any hope for the rest of the season, and I'd probably just be picking them to lose and expecting them to lose. But man, winning is really nice, but you forget how bad losing is when that's all your team does. But anyways, So that's enough of how I feel. Let's actually get into this game a little bit and talk about why the Saints lost 25 to 19 and are now sitting at sitting at 1-5. Uh, so uh, let's get into this. So can I get a menu? And the first thing I want to talk about was like some of the penalties and the reviews in this game. Just completely disconcerned myself with how the Saints defense pretty much in the first quarter, first half of a game, they just go ahead and just spot any team that they're playing. Just go ahead and just give them 14 points and then let's just start the game from there because that seems to be how the Saints defense and just the Saints team in general has been working like all year. Like just get down by double-digit points and scratch and crawl, claw your way to trying to get back in the game, which the Saints in 5 out of 6 games have done very admirably in doing that. But you're just not going to win a lot of games when that kind of stuff's happening. And the penalties in this game, the Saints were given a lot of chances in this game. This may be this game and the game against the Buffalo Bills were the two games this season where those teams had more penalties than they did. And you may talk about like timely penalties, like when were the penalties timed, how many of the penalties like accounted for like first downs and things like that. But still, the Patriots had 11 for 65, and the Saints had 8 for 67. But two of those penalties that the that the that the Patriots got took like scores off the board. On the second drive, the penalty the it was a trying to think if it was Kayshawn Boutte or 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 Stephon Diggs catching like a 50 something yard touchdown and making Quincy Riley look like an absolute clown. But for somehow, it must have been Kayshawn Boutte or Demario Douglas actually on that play because the penalty that called it back was for like illegal contact or or holding or blocking downfield or something by Stephon Diggs, which called that penalty back. So yeah, it looked like a very bad ticky tacky call penalty that took off like a 50-yard touchdown from the from the Patriots. But what killed me after that is that the the Saints got called for penalties like 3 times in a row that gave like the Patriots makeup calls. They got like 3 makeup calls, like all the way down in the field to score a touchdown off of that, anyways. So yeah, that was frustrating, but more it was the reviews. Like I don't think the penalties aren't what lost the game, the Saints game. Actually, you could argue maybe actually kind of kept them in the game. Besides the fact that I feel that they were able to just get marched down the field with makeup calls at the end on that second drive, but it's still they're getting the Saints got more penalties called against them, and then later it felt like late in the game the penalties were kind of piling up on the Patriots, and it was keeping the Saints in the game. But really, more to that, talking about the refs more is the reviews that I thought were somewhat sketchy. I don't know. And the first one was the 2 point conversion. So yeah, the the let's see, it was so the Patriots, they went up, would have been just 21 to 16. So I didn't really understand why they even went for that because still, even if the Saints kicked a field goal there, it wouldn't have got them. They still would have been behind by one. But still, they decided down 20 21 or 20 to 16. They thought that they needed to, I don't know, chase points for some reason. Didn't matter because the Saints didn't score but 3 more points in the entire game. But yeah, they did the review, and originally they called it unsuccessful 2 point conversion. But then they go back and look at replays, and on the stream for watching it on television, they showed 3 different views of it to where you could not see the ball. You couldn't see the ball like at all. Like you could see Drake May's like helmet and shoulders kind of cross the line, but that doesn't mean the ball was there. You couldn't see the ball. Like yeah, his shoulders and helmet and all that could be across the line, but the ball could be down like between his legs. So that they overturned that and gave the gave the 2 point conversion to them. That was kind of sketchy and kind of annoying. But in reality, it didn't end up mattering at all. But then, and this goes to this call as well. Like I thought, like calls have to be called clear and obvious and concise, like clear and obvious to be overturned. It doesn't seem like that anymore. It just seems like, yeah, we think it should have been this originally, so we're going to go ahead and change it type of thing when it's like you couldn't see the ball. And then the same thing with it was the uh, Juwan Johnson fumble where he had it. Saints were I think it was 19-25. So the Saints got the ball at the end of the game multiple times to where they could have scored a touchdown and an extra point and could have took a 1 point lead in this game multiple times. But it really felt like the last drive where the Saints had any hope. They were moving. They were at their own 50-yard line, and then uh, Spencer Rattler completed a pass down the field to Juwan Johnson, and Juwan Johnson kind of like like dove ahead when he did it, and he got knocked out. I think it was for like a 13-yard catch, so it would have took them up to like what uh, the like the 35 or something of the Patriots, and it got punched out. But it looked like it got bobbled or moved around out of his control, and then it looked like he secured it again. And then when he hit the ground, it forced the fumble. But that was one of those ones that it's like I thought it has to be clear and obvious, but that wasn't clear and obvious. To me, it looked like, yeah, it got punched and got bobbled around a little bit, but then he controlled it again. And then when he hit the ground, it came out. Like Brand was Chris Olave's fumble earlier in the game on another possession around that similar time. Uh, should have been a fumble. Like that was obvious that that was a fumble, but it wouldn't have changed really where they were on the field. And with the crappy punting by Kai Kroger, it ended up probably being like exactly the same place anyway where Chris Olave fumbled. It would have was like the same place anyhow, uh, but they just called it incomplete because how they're punting from their 50-yard line, and the Patriots are still getting it at their own 25-yard line. Like when you're punting from like the midfield, that's when you should be punting stuff inside the 20. So that's annoying. But that kind of brings me in more to, I guess, Chris Olave and Juwan Johnson. So Juwan Johnson didn't have too many critical errors. He didn't have a bunch of drops, kind of like Chris Olave in this game, but he definitely had the critical error at a critical moment where it felt like the Saints were starting to kind of gain momentum in this game and had an opportunity to maybe take a 1 point lead in this game, and fumbles like just like right on time. Felt very similar to the Alvin Kamara fumble against the 49ers in week 2 when he got the ball knocked out, caught, catch, and fumble on a play where it looked like the Saints were on go ahead, like looking to score, like they were on one of their better drives, and it gets knocked out before they can do anything with it. And that's really kind of that what led to this loss. What led to the loss was the Saints having settling for field goals and the Patriots scoring touchdowns, and then that fumble and the drops. And I'm talking about the drops with Chris Olave, because I felt as if we were about to have a big day, not just for Spencer Rattler having like a big passing day, but even maybe a coming out party for Chris Olave, because the first play of the game for the Saints on offense was a 53-yard pass completion to Chris Olave. And then it was just seemed like that was what they were trying to hook up to like all game, basically, was Spencer Rattler trying to get downfield to Chris Olave with 10 targets, but was only able to catch 6 of them, 6 for 98 with 6.3 average, no touchdowns, and a 53-yard long. But let's see, 4 of those 6 catches, 4 of those targets that weren't completed, they were drops. Uh, had the one touchdown drop, called a drop, and then uh, there was another pass. I think it was maybe on second and long or third down where he had to like high point it, like went up in the air and tried to like catch it in traffic, and it hit both of his hands and he dropped it. And then I think the you would probably categorize the catch and fumble as a drop because he didn't catch it. But yeah, I mean, when your playmakers can't make the plays for you and your quarterback is doing as much as he can, it's real hard to win these games and to you know this with how the Saints are constructed and with how talented they are, they like have to be like perfect to win any of these games. And I was kind of like in agreement there early on in this season when it came to Spencer Rattler. Like he needs to be like more accurate for these receivers to make these catches and make plays for him. But I'm like over that. I'm like I've sold that. Like I'm completely over that because there's too many of these games this year, and it seems like or at least two or three plays like every single game where yeah, it's maybe it's a little high or maybe it's a little behind them or maybe it's a little too out in front of them, but still it hits them in the hands. If it hits them in not just one hand but both hands, they if they're a playmaker, they're a wide receiver one or they're a top-notch tight end, they should be coming down with these plays. That's why these guys like Chris Olave in a contract year or contract talks are wanting 25, 30 million a year because they should be making those type of catches. It shouldn't have to be like right in their breadbasket every throw. So I'm off of the whole Spencer Rattler's not accurate enough because hell you catch one of those passes or hell even Juwan Johnson doesn't fumble the ball. I would say there'd be at least one more touchdown on the board. So hell, the Patriots probably still would have won. The Saints would have scored what that had been 26, and then the Patriots had the ball at the end. So the Saints probably still would have lost 28 to 26, but still it would make Spencer Rattler's numbers look a little bit even better because they weren't terrible as he was 20 for 26, which is nice seeing him not throw it 30, 40 times a game for 227 yards with an 8.7 average. So his average is up around where you want it, but just no touchdowns and no interceptions is nice. But two sacks for a loss of four and a 7.2 QBR and a 102.6 quarterback rating. I mean, those are good enough numbers, should be good enough numbers to win you some games. But when your playmakers, your guys that are wanting to be paid as top end receivers and players like that, they need to be making you those plays. And we saw that was the difference. We saw the Patriots players doing that. We saw Keyshawn Boutte making the Saints defense look like Boutte coming down with like some big touchdown plays, and one's like at the end of the game. One was on like what their first drive, and then one was at the end of the half. He's catching these touchdowns, and he had 5 catches for 93 yards with 18.6 average with 2 touchdowns and a long of 29, and caught all five for five on targets. I'd much rather Chris Olave be 5 for 5 on targets than have 6 catches but 10 targets, you know. But you having the New England Patriots players making plays and Saints players not. And honestly, coming into this game, I was more worried that I like Keyshawn Boutte going off on the Saints and scoring 2 touchdowns, and even DeMarco Douglas having a receiving touchdown as well and 71 yards off of 3 catches with a 53-yard long. I was more expecting it to be Stephon Diggs. I was expecting Stephon Diggs to make a couple big plays, maybe catch a touchdown, and then they start showing highlights of the Minnesota Miracle, which I'm surprised with the whole billing up for this game and, Stephon Diggs being on the Patriots. Now, I'm surprised we didn't see that, but that was one of the few positive moments from this game. But let's just get into some more of this, just finish up on stats. So we talked about Spencer Rattler. The Saints didn't have a great running game. They couldn't get anything going on the ground, but that was the same thing with the Patriots. The Patriots couldn't do anything as well. The Saints had less carries, but had the exact same amount of yards. They had 23 carries for 73 yards, which was just a 7.2 or just a 3.2 average and just one touchdown. And that was coming off of 10 carries for 31 yards from Kamara, 8 carries for 21 yards by Kendra Miller, and then 4 carries for 20 yards by Spencer Rattler, and the 1 yard touchdown for a touchdown. Yeah, the 1 yard touchdown run by Taysom Hill. So yeah, even with not really being able to run the ball at all, Spencer Rattler still had really impressive numbers. But the same thing with with Drake May, he had great numbers, and the real big difference is the 3 passing touchdowns. But well, he they had just 73 yards rushing too off of 31 attempts, which was 2.4 average. And hell, their leading rusher was Drake May with 9 carries for 28 yards. So with the Saints defense not playing real good in the first half, and like we said, looking like Boutte. It's hard to, man, it's really frustrating and annoying to lose games when your defense is keeping the opposing offense under 100 yards receiving or 100 yards rushing. And then we already talked about Olave, but a bunch of trade talk swirling around him. I would not be opposed to it. Then Alvin Kamara had 5 catches for 45 yards, which was a 9 per game average or per attempt average, and then had 22 long and 5 total targets there. So this was one of the first games that the Saints seemed to really be targeting Alvin Kamara. And then you had 4 catches for 28 yards with an average of 7 with no touchdowns, 17-yard long and 6 targets. And then Brandon Cook had 1 nice catch for 21 yards and just a long of 21. And then we had the big play that should have probably ended up leading to a touchdown, was the big completion to Bailey over the middle, which brought it down like inside the 5, but ended up getting called back due to holding by Kelvin Banks Jr. So yeah, nothing too exciting offensively with these offensive numbers. Spencer Rattler had definitely a respectable day, but really after there wasn't a whole lot to get excited about. And then just kind of your top players on defense, I guess Devin Gotchu, he kind of had his revenge game against the Patriots. The thing is, they didn't win, but he led the team with 7 total tackles, 3 solo, 1 tackle for loss. And then Jonas Sanker, he was one of the young players, rookies, kind of got turned around a couple times on some of those Keyshawn Boutte and Douglas touchdowns. But he had 6 total tackles, 4 solo, 1 tackle for loss. And then probably your best defender on the day was Pete Warner, had 5 total tackles, 5 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, pass deflection, and a quarterback hit. Even Jonathan Bullard had 3 total tackles with 2 tackles for loss. Demario Davis had 3 total tackles with 2 solo and 1 tackle for loss. Justin Reed had 3 total tackles, 1 solo and 1 tackle for loss. I mean, the Saints had them. If anything, on defense, they definitely gave the Saints offense some opportunities at the end of the games, and it was because they were getting on first and second down runs towards the end of the game. They were getting tackles for loss, like putting the Patriots in long to go situations. Even though the Saints, I don't know if they they maybe completed like one third down this entire game. Okay, they were 3 for 9, but the Patriots were 6 for 13, and it was like the long. It's like they were third and 8 or longer, and it was just like might as well just give them the first down. It felt like. So that's your defenders. That's an impressive thing. I kind of didn't notice that they had that many tackles for loss. The Saints, they're definitely not a first team, first half defense. You know, they need to wake up. They need to set their alarm at maybe an hour early so that they can be ready to play come the first quarter of these games. Because spotting teams 14 points right out of the gate ain't cutting it when we're trying to get some wins here. And then just special teams, you had 4 kick returns for 89 yards, which was a 23.3 average with 24 long, and that was all Mason Tipton. So we got to see Mason Tipton because they cut or waived Velez Jr., and they weren't having Kendra Miller or receiving those or having Rashid Shaheed back there for those. And then Rashid Shaheed had uh, two punt returns for 21 yards, which is a 10.5 average, a 12 long. And then Blake Grupe actually had his best game of the season this year. He was 4 for 4 on field goals, which is 100%. Had a 54-yard long, but I think he had another 50-yarder as well. So he had 2 50-yard field goals in this game, and then he was 1 for 1 on extra points. And he accounted for 13 of the Saints' 19 total points in this game, which is wild. And then Kyle Kroger was only it's wild that the Saints seems like the Saints defense, I guess, offense played decent. You know, I guess it was just they scored on a lot of their possessions, but it was just 3 points because hell, they only punted twice in this game. They punted twice, 2 times for 70 yards, which is terrible, 35-yard average. None inside the 20, and just a long of 47. But see how many times the Saints defense forced the Patriots to punt more than the Saints. I guess you could take a drive away that maybe the Saints would have ended up punting on, but didn't, as the one where Juwan Johnson fumbled. But yeah, I think that's the real big difference in this game is that the Saints settled for field goals while the Patriots were scoring touchdowns. The Saints were the only team to turn the ball over, to have a turnover in this game at a crucial time, and couldn't convert third downs, third downs really, third and long, really. So that pretty much sums up why the Saints lost and the Patriots won. And even with it being like that, still it feels as if the Saints could have just made a one play here or one play there. Juwan Johnson not fumble, Chris Olave maybe catch one of those another deep shots to him, or catch the touchdown, or convert a third down. Felt like just 1, 2 more plays, or 1 or 2 not bad plays, would have been enough to at least maybe tie this thing up. Because hell, you know, if the Saints scored a touchdown here, or maybe wouldn't even have scored, they'd have just held on to the ball on those last 2 drives to get close enough to into field goal range. But maybe they kick 2 field goals to make it 25-25. Or we know if they actually scored the touchdown late, or say there wasn't much time left, they'd score the touchdown, making it 25-25, and then they'd miss the extra point, even though Blake Grupe had been pretty much perfect the whole game. But so those are your majority of your stats. Let's get into our MVP picks and who ended up actually being the player of this game. So I picked Kendra Miller. I was hoping Kendra Miller would have another breakout game, another 100-yard game, a touchdown game like he did against the Giants last week, but we didn't get that out of him. It seemed like Spencer Rattler and Kellen Moore were really kind of targeting Chris Olave in the spot where you would typically see Rashid Shaheed on these like deep routes and go routes and plays going up the sideline and stuff. But every time I saw like the ball come out of Spencer Rattler's hand, and it was going like way downfield or on any play, I always was thinking like, oh yeah, they're throwing a deep shot to Rashid Shaheed, and then like the first play of the game, happen like that, and it's Chris Olave, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe here we go. Chris Olave's about to have a big game here, but then he just like that was pretty much most of his yards. He had almost 100 yards, but it came off of half of it all came off of one play at the very beginning of the game, and then he was very up and down for the rest of the game, fumbling and dropping crucial passes to where it's just like, man, I think I'd have preferred maybe some of those deep shots to Rashid Shaheed, maybe one or two of those that were thrown to Olave. I'd have rather seen Rashid Shaheed get those, but yeah, he didn't, and he ended up only having 4 catches off of 6 targets for 28 yards, which is a 7 average, no touchdowns, and just had the one long of 17. So sadly, Rashid Shaheed wasn't able to break out again. I was hoping after having some success with it last week that we'd get to see it, but for some odd reason, they decided they wanted to use Chris Olave, who's shown this year that he's I don't know, the concussions or have affected him in regards to hearing voices or not being able to catch contested catches or catches in traffic or jump balls or anything like that. To why when it comes to trying to make a big play deep downfield, I'd much rather see Rashid Shaheed than Chris Olave, where the trade rumors and things continue to swirl, not just around him, but you could say Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, Rashid Shaheed, all these defenders, uh, Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, all those guys. But yeah, I just need to see more. So because Chris Olave, because Rashid Shaheed wasn't my MVP player, I think the player that I'm gonna pick for it, and even though his numbers aren't impressive, and he only had like one play really, one touch offensively the whole game. I think he was in on like 11 or 12 plays, but only had one touch. But was Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill, I think it would have been good enough to just go ahead and turn the TV off after Taysom Hill had his 1 yard touchdown, and it put the Saints up in the game 16-14, just like they were last week before halftime against the Giants. So, like I said, that was kind of a lanyard. We'll get into it later on the hot takes that I know anytime touchdown, if Taysom Hill scores a touchdown, and especially in the scenario that it was where he scored it and the Saints actually went up on the scoreboard with it, and the roof just exploded off the dome. And like I said, it probably would have been for best interest and for most people's health and mental health to just turn the game off at that point. But I'm giving my offensive player of the game to Taysom Hill. 1 catch or 1 rush, 1 touchdown. That shows you how underperforming all the other Saints skills position players are doing. Like I'd have maybe thought about giving it to Spencer Rattler if he'd at least thrown one touchdown, but you can't excuse him either from this. I know his receivers need to make plays, but maybe he needs to go to a different receiver. The ones he's throwing to constantly are dropping half of throws he's throwing to him, or they're fumbling. Maybe he needs to go to someone else. So Taysom Hill, offensive player of the game. And then we already talked about Pete Warner a little bit, but Pete Warner, he had the only sack of the game on a play where Drake May was kind of scrambling around, and it looked like he was trying to take off to run, and Pete Warner was able to grab him and pull him behind the line of scrimmage, so that it registered as a sack. And then he had another tackle for loss on a play and a pass deflection, and one of those drives and plays that he made, he laid a pretty good hit on a New England player. I think it might have been. I think of who it was. For some reason I'm wanting to say it was Stephon Diggs, but I think it was probably Trayvon Henderson or Ramon Stevenson, their running backs. So he had a little bit of hit stick there, got a sack, a tackle for loss, a quarterback hit, pass deflection. So Pete Warner was really the only player for the Saints that was making any plays, really, any type of big plays. other than the fact that they were getting tackles for loss on some first and second down runs at the end of the game. That was kind of keeping the Saints in it, but Saints offense and just overall team just couldn't capitalize on any of that. And so that's defensive player of the game, Pete Warner. And then offensive player of the game, I think it's pretty easy, and I'm happy to give it to him. And hopefully that means we're in for more of it. And that's Blake Grupe, maybe over the Yips, hopefully over the Yips. I say that with us going to Chicago, bad weather stadium. I say that. I have to maybe wait until that game's over before we can really see, because he's even though he's been missing them even when they've been in a climate controlled environment. Let's see how he does in area like on actual grass with wind and possible rain. But Blake Grupe being 4 for 4, basically the Saints' only points in the game, 13 of their 19, hit two 50-yarders and the only extra point off the only touchdown they get. So Blake Grupe, the rest of the team, pretty much the whole team besides Spencer Rattler, looking bad, and it's not the greatest time for him to have his best game, but kind of like some of these calls by the refs and some of the run stuffing defense at the end of the game. That was just another thing that just kind of kept the Saints in the game. Would maybe for some fans out there, it would have been easier to turn it off quicker if he'd have missed two of those. You take two of them away, and then it's a 25-13 game. It seems and feels more like a blowout then. So there's your special teams player of the game, Blake Grupe, and hopefully he can build and grow on that. And now on to the hot takes here. So Chase Young, he did play, but he didn't get a sack for us. He was the same old Chase Young for the most part, Mr. Almost sack. And I will say, besides not too many of the other Saints rushers really showing up in this game, if nothing else, it did cause like kind of like a constant pressure or a time clock for Drake May to be having, because for the most part, Chase Young was always coming on every pass rush that he was getting, but he just couldn't get there. There was the one where he really got close to getting a strip sack on Drake May, but of course he gets it out right before he gets that. So we just kind of know that Chase Young is Mr. Almost Sack, even after the season he had last year, and with the Saints paying him big in the offseason. I don't know why I would think that like that was going to change or anything. But yeah, I wanted to see Chase Young come back and play and be healthy and get a sack, but I think he did come back and play and was healthy and was pretty much constantly getting pressure on passing downs. But like we know, he's Mr. Almost Sack. So can't say the hot take hit because we didn't get a sack from Mr. Almost Sack. But still, I was happy to see him back out there healthy, doing what we know him to do. But I think it did give a little bit of an extra element to the Saints defense, just in regards to the pass rush being a little more consistent. Like, because before, if they weren't actually getting the sack, then there was pretty much no pass rush from the Saints at all before Chase Young came back. All right, and the second hot take was I was hoping or expecting or was thinking that it would be maybe in the Saints' best interest to not necessarily move away from Alvin Kamara, but really kind of make him more of a third down back, kind of like more of your Darren Sproles type of back, and have Kendra Miller be like your bell cow and have more carries and more snaps and more touches. But we didn't get that. Sadly, we didn't get that. But I can't say Kendra Miller did a whole lot with the carries that he had, because he only had 8 for 21 yards and had just one catch for 11 yards. So they ended up just having 9 touches while Alvin Kamara had 15. So I can't say there's not a huge discrepancy there, because I mean Kendra Miller wasn't doing a whole lot with the touches he was getting, but can't say Alvin Kamara was doing a whole lot with the ones he was getting in the rushing game. He was it was nice to see how the Saints were using Alvin Kamara a little bit more in the passing game, which they can do that, but maybe take a couple carries away from them and give them to Kendra Miller. But we didn't get that. It ended up being what 15-9, and the snap count, don't have the exact snap count, but just off of touches, Kendra Miller didn't have more touches than Kamara 2 days in a row, and just didn't have more touches than him in general in this game. So maybe they'll be more of a pickup and changing more because Saints have issues in the receiving game, receiver uh, room, that maybe you should maybe move Alvin Kamara more as a slot receiver or a third down back, and have Kendra Miller be the bell cow, the guy that's getting 50, 20, 15, 20 carries a game. But for now, that hot take doesn't hit. And so luckily we had a lanyard, kind of just like an extra, a bonus hot take here, and it was the anytime touchdown for Taysom Hill, which we got. And like I said, probably would have been nice. It was at the end of the game, or at the end of the first half. The Saints are going up 16 to 14. You should just turn the game off and been like, hey, the Saints won. They have the same exact score they did against the Giants last week. Like, oh man, they're gonna blow them out in the second half. Just go ahead and just turn this off. But no, of course, with just like what, less than like a minute or two, the 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 Patriots just march right down the field, and I think it was Ken uh, Boutte, Kayshawn Boutte caught another pass like deep down the field and got them like down to like the 1 yard line, and then they ended up getting that touchdown and the 2 point conversion that I'm still would like to see. Still wondering where the ball was on that play, but go ahead and take Taysom Hill for that, because that was definitely nice getting to see Taysom Hill. You can still kind of see he doesn't have that explosiveness, quite as explosiveness that we know, and he doesn't have quite as good like side to side movement, but still out in open space, a defender one on one. That was kind of like a no brainer that he's going to score a touchdown. With how the play was blocked originally, I was surprised he even got touched at all on the way to the end zone. It was such a big lane for him to run through. But with how this season's going, just sign me up for just at least one Taysom Hill play like that a day. I think that might be enough to get me through the season. But yeah, it was disappointing that they got that went up and then just gave like, should have been no surprise to anyone. The team has a minute plus and a couple timeouts at the end of the half or end of the game that of course they're gonna go right down the field and score a touchdown or a field goal, whatever they need, really, to put them in their best situation. So that's my player of the games and hot takes. The last thing is the pick and score here for this game. So with I'm sure with you listening to me and how we started the podcast out with how I feel about how winning feels so nice and feels so good, and then kind of had forgot what it felt like to win, and had forgot what it felt to be kind of upset after a loss. So yeah, you probably understand that I picked the Saints to win this game. I thought that before the season started, this was kind of the era, the kind of the place in the season where it looked like the Saints maybe could start picking up some wins. Because you got the Giants, the Patriots, uh, the the Bears. A couple weeks from now, you got the Jets and some teams like that. So we thought maybe, oh yeah, maybe Saints can pick up some wins here, and they were able to pick up a win against the Giants, and I'd already picked them. What week two, I think, yeah, week two against the injured 49ers. So I'm like, hey, three of their first 6 games, why not pick them to win? They won one of them. So thinking that and thinking, I don't really know how good are the Patriots, how good are the Bills, because that's who the Patriots were coming off of winning, and that was who the Saints had played 2 weeks ago, and were able to stay in the game with them. So I just didn't know how good the Patriots are, but I mean they're first in the AFC East now after another loss to the Falcons by the Bills. So I picked the Saints to win this game. I picked them to win 23-19, and the Saints weren't able to score more than 20 points. And I think we've stated that already. If the Saints don't score at least 21 plus in a game, they're not winning. Their defense isn't that good. So they're not winning. And it's funny that I picked this game 23-19. It actually almost was just the exact score, but just flipped around because the Saints scored 19, like I was predicting for the New England, and the Patriots scored 25. So just two more points than what I was predicting for the Saints. So got clowned there with the score basically just being flipped around and the Saints losing and making key mistakes, drops, fumbles, and just not being able to get into the end zone, not finishing on these red zone drives and these potential promising looking drives that they have that end up ending in having to kick field goals. And earlier in the season, having to kick field goals when you had a little bit of a shaky kicker. But that wasn't the issue in this game. Definitely the full issue was having to kick field goals, not catching the ball, and obviously one team turned it over, and the one team that turned it over was the Saints, and the one team that lost was the Saints. So my pick and score wasn't right. I can almost say my score was right, but we would have had to flip it around, and I had to just come in here real quick and say I did pick the Patriots to win. So I'd have the score almost exactly right and the pick. But sadly, that's not the case. The Saints drop to the Patriots 25-19. Patriots drop to 1-5, and man, uh, after seeing the Bears beat Washington Sunday night and see them win their third game in a row. They're on a three-game winning streak coming off of their bye. So lucky. I guess the only positive is that they're coming off of what, a short? Would we call that a short? Yeah, yeah. So they played Monday night, the later game. It was a 7-15 game, but so playing the Bears coming off of a short week, but are on a three-game winning streak. I just don't see how the Saints have much of a chance there. But we'll get into that more later in the week. But anyways, I think that's about all I have for you this evening. So who dat? And can I get a check, please?